On the afternoon of July 5th, 2014, a Russian citizen named Roman Seleznev sits in the International Departure Lounge of Valana International Airport in the Republic of Maldives. He is wearing flip-flops. There is a MacBook Pro under his right arm. His Aeroflot return flight to Moscow boards in 82 minutes. He is the most wanted cybercriminal on Earth. He has stolen the credit card information of 2.9 million Americans. He has caused $170 million in damages to American businesses. He has been indicted in federal court in Seattle on 38 counts. He believes he is untouchable. His father sits in the lower house of the Russian parliament. He is a personal ally of Vladimir Putin. For 9 years, the FSB has shielded him from every American arrest warrant. He chose the Maldives for this vacation because it has no extradition treaty with the United States. He is correct about every fact in his calculation except one. 12 feet away, two Americans in cargo shorts and faded Hawaiian shirts pretend to read postcards on a souvenir rack. They are United States Secret Service agents. They carry no badges. They carry no firearms. They carry no diplomatic credentials of any kind. They flew into Mail 3 days ago on a commercial flight from Singapore with snorkeling gear and fake hotel reservations, posing as American tourists on a diving holiday. In the next 82 minutes, they are going to commit an act that has no name in international law. They are going to kidnap the son of a Russian senator from a sovereign country with which the United States has no agreement, no warrant, and no legal authority. By morning, Moscow will call it kidnapping. A decade later, two governments will use a different word. They will call him an asset. This is the story of how the United States Secret Service invented an operational doctrine to capture 3 Russian hackers their own government would never surrender. And it is the story of what the Russian Federation invented to bring those hackers home anyway. It is the story of how multi-millionaire criminals who drove Lamborghinis and bought 5-star resort suites by the week ended up as casino chips in a high-stakes exchange between 2 nuclear powers. It begins in the Maldives. It ends in Ankara. The window the agents opened on that humid Saturday afternoon turned out to swing both ways. Roman Seleznev was, by 2014, what underground forum users called a king. He operated under 3 aliases: Track2, Bulba, and NecuX. His marketplaces functioned as eBay for stolen financial data. Customers in 80 countries logged in to buy American credit card dumps in batches of 10, of 100, of 1,000. Each card represented an American family whose bank account had been emptied without warning. He spent his profits the way the wealthy in Russia spend profits the state pretends not to notice. Lamborghinis, chartered yachts in the Mediterranean. The Kanafushi resort suite he had just checked out of cost $50,000 for 7 nights. In Moscow, his father's bloodline functioned as armor. Roman bragged on underground forums that FSB agents protected him. They did. Every extradition request filed by the Department of Justice landed in Moscow's trash bin, returned with bureaucratic explanations that fooled no one. For a decade, the Secret Service had watched him work. They had built a case the size of a phone book. They could not touch him. Then he booked a vacation in a country that had no treaty with the United States. A travel record alert woke an analyst at Secret Service headquarters in the pre-dawn hours of a Tuesday morning. By the end of that day, a conference call had connected 12 federal officials across 3 agencies. The window was 7 days. After that, Seleznev would return to Moscow's protection, probably forever. The problem was the law itself. Formal extradition was impossible. Diplomatic channels meant notification. The moment Russian intelligence learned their prince was being pursued in a foreign country, they would intervene. Standard procedure guaranteed failure. So the agents proposed something with no precedent in federal practice. They would fly to the Maldives as tourists. They would walk through immigration like any other American on holiday. They would negotiate directly with the Maldivian police in person in a back room of an airport station. And they would use Maldivian immigration authority to expel Seleznev as an undesirable alien, a bureaucratic fiction that would deliver him into American custody without any treaty being signed and any warrant being issued. A reverse heist. Instead of stealing valuables from a secure location, they would steal the criminal from a country that had not agreed to lose him. The plan violated nearly every protocol in the federal manual. It could end careers. It could spark diplomatic warfare. It could land the agents themselves in a Maldivian prison cell as foreign nationals committing kidnapping on Maldivian soil. One senior official summed it up in a sentence that silenced the conference call. "We cannot win this in a courtroom. We will have to win it on the ground." The agents landed in Mail that night. They met the chief of the Maldives Police Service the following evening in a back room of a small airport station, ceiling fans rotating slowly overhead. The Americans spread photographs across a wooden table, screenshots of the marketplaces, damage reports from bankrupted American businesses, a spreadsheet listing 2.9 million stolen accounts. The police chief understood the cost. The Republic of Maldives had a population of 400,000. If Moscow ever discovered the arrangement, it would accuse the Maldives of state-sponsored abduction. A small island nation could find itself crushed between two nuclear powers arguing over a hacker most Maldivians had never heard of. But the chief also looked at the photographs. He saw a predator who had stolen from thousands of ordinary people across the world and faced no consequence because his father was politically connected. He agreed on one condition: total silence. If the Russian embassy received any warning, the operation died. Seleznev arrived at the airport on the afternoon of July 5th with his girlfriend, dragging luggage, wearing flip-flops, holding the MacBook Pro. He handed his passport to a Maldivian immigration officer. The officer scanned it. A red flag appeared on the screen. The instructions had been installed the previous night. Seleznev was asked to step aside for a routine security check. Two uniformed Maldivian police officers materialized from a side corridor and escorted him into a windowless room normally reserved for visa disputes. His girlfriend tried to follow, but an officer blocked her. The door closed behind Roman Seleznev with a click that sounded, in retrospect, like the lock on the rest of his life. His composure cracked. He demanded explanations in English, then in Russian. The officers gave him nothing. Outside, the American agents moved into position. Then the door burst open and his fear became justified. The struggle lasted 40 seconds. Furniture went over. His girlfriend screamed in the corridor outside. He thrashed with the panic of a man who had just understood that everything he believed about his own safety was wrong. During the fight, he made one final decision. He clutched the MacBook Pro. The machine contained his entire criminal infrastructure, encrypted files, server credentials, transaction records, the names of every buyer he had ever supplied. As the agents pulled his hands behind his back, he thrust the laptop toward the doorway and shouted to his girlfriend in Russian, "Take it!" An agent caught the laptop in midair. He passed it to a Maldivian officer with a single instruction: Do not let the screen go to sleep. The device was still unlocked. The agents had captured not only the most wanted hacker on Earth, but the evidence that would convict him beyond any reasonable doubt. Then the monsoon arrived. By the time they reached the tarmac, tropical storm winds were bending palm trees horizontal. Sheets of rain hammered the windshield of the unmarked vehicle that carried Seleznev to the executive terminal. A Gulfstream G550 ISO, registered to a medical air charter company in Florida, sat with engines running on a remote stand. Its filed flight plan listed a routine patient transfer. Its actual cargo would be a handcuffed hacker bound for Guam, 8,000 miles east, the nearest scrap of United States territory in the Pacific. A phone call had already reached Russian intelligence. The Russian embassy had already reached the Maldivian government. Maldivian government officials had already reached the airport control tower. The order came down the line in the moments before takeoff. Gulfstream, November 5. 5. Tango, return to the apron. You are not cleared for departure. The pilot looked at the lead agent in the cabin. The lead agent shook his head once. The pilot pushed the throttles forward. The Gulfstream lifted off into 50-mile-per-hour crosswinds, found at the last possible moment of the runway. The cabin shuddered. Roman Seleznev, strapped into a leather seat, watched the terminal lights recede through the rain-streaked window and screamed at the cockpit. "Stop! I am a Russian citizen. You have no authority." The plane climbed into black clouds over the Indian Ocean. Jurisdiction ends here. By the time satellite phones reached the pilots with frantic instructions to return, the jet was at 40,000 feet, heading east, beyond any practical interception. In the cabin, Seleznev sat with wet hair plastered to his face. The fight had gone out of his voice. "My father will not forget this," he said. "Russia will come for me." An agent shrugged. A federal judge in Seattle would later sentence Roman Seleznev to 27 years in prison. At the time of the sentencing, it was the longest prison term ever imposed on a hacker by an American court. The doctrine had worked. The doctrine had also just been published. A year and a half later, the United States used it again. In December of 2015, a Russian citizen named Alexei Burkov landed at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv on a routine tourist visit. Burkov, 25 years old, was the operator of a credit card marketplace called Card Planet, which had moved more than 150,000 stolen American cards. The United States had filed a sealed extradition request with Israel. The Israeli officer at passport control scanned his passport, and the same red flag appeared on the same kind of screen. Burkov was in custody before he finished his vacation. What followed was 4 years of legal warfare between two great powers, fought entirely inside Israeli courtrooms. Russia threw everything it had at Israel: diplomatic notes, public condemnations, and threats that grew progressively less subtle. When the diplomatic pressure did not work, the Russian Federation tried something else. In the spring of 2019, a 27-year-old Israeli-American backpacker named Naama Issachar landed at Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow on a transit flight from India to Tel Aviv. She did not enter the country. She was on a layover, 2 hours from boarding her connection. A drug-sniffing dog passed her checked bag. It contained approximately 10 grams of marijuana, packed by a friend without her direct knowledge. The amount would not have produced criminal charges in most countries. It would not have produced criminal charges in Russia under normal circumstances. Naama Issachar was not on layover under normal circumstances. A Russian court convicted her of drug smuggling and sentenced her to 7.5 years in prison. Russian officials began, on background, to suggest to Israeli reporters that her sentence might be reduced if Israel decided not to extradite Alexei Burkov to the United States. This was hostage diplomacy in plain view. A young woman with no connection to cybercrime, no connection to politics, no connection to anything except being on the wrong layover at the wrong moment, had been sentenced to 7.5 years in a Russian prison because of a Russian hacker she had never heard of. Israel extradited Burkov to the United States anyway. The Supreme Court of Israel ruled against his appeal unanimously. Burkov pleaded guilty in federal court that January. 6 days later, Vladimir Putin signed a pardon for Naama Issachar. She had served 10 months in a Russian prison. She came home. She has not spoken publicly about the experience. The doctrine the Secret Service had written in the Maldives had now been used in a second country. The counter-doctrine the Kremlin had written in Sheremetyevo had now produced its first civilian hostage. The system was learning. In the summer of 2017, a Russian citizen named Alexander Vinnik sat on a beach in northern Greece with his family. His feet were in the Aegean. Vinnik, 38 years old, was the co-founder of an obscure cryptocurrency exchange called BTCE. According to a sealed American indictment, BTCE had laundered approximately $4 billion in criminal proceeds since 2011. 2 unmarked vehicles arrived at the beach. Vinnik was in handcuffs before his children had finished building their sandcastle. What followed was the most baroque extradition fight in modern criminal law. 3 countries filed simultaneous requests for him. The United States wanted him for money laundering. Russia wanted him returned home. France wanted him for separate charges involving French ransomware victims. Vinnik spent 5 years inside Greek detention while the 3 governments argued. He went to France first, served time for money laundering, was returned to Greek custody, and then, in the late summer of 2022, was finally extradited to the United States. He arrived in San Francisco in chains. By that point, the doctrine the Secret Service had improvised in the Maldives 8 years earlier had become standard practice. 3 Russian nationals, captured in 3 countries that were not the Russian Federation, had ended up in 3 American federal courthouses. But somewhere between the Maldives in 2014 and Greece in 2022, something quieter had begun to happen. It started in the late summer of 2021. Alexei Burkov, who had been sentenced to 9 years in an American prison, had served only 22 months. A federal judge in the Eastern District of Virginia signed an order under seal. Within 96 hours, Burkov was on a commercial flight to Russia. There was no press release. There was no acknowledgement. The Department of Justice declined to explain the reasoning to reporters. 2 United States senators wrote letters to the Attorney General demanding answers. The Department of Justice did not respond on the record. Burkov landed in Moscow as a free man, walked through immigration, and disappeared back into Russian life. What was understood without ever being confirmed was that his release had been part of a quiet exchange. The man who had been extracted by the doctrine had now become the asset being returned. For the first time, the window the Secret Service had opened in mail was swinging in the other direction. It would swing wide 3 years later. On the first day of August 2024, A Turkish Airlines cargo aircraft sat on a remote stand at the western edge of the runway at Esenboga Airport in Ankara. Two other government aircraft sat on adjacent stands. One was American, one was Russian. The largest prisoner exchange between the United States and the Russian Federation since the Cold War was about to begin. 26 people would cross that tarmac in the next 40 minutes. Among the men the United States was returning to Moscow was Vadim Krasikov, the FSB hitman who had assassinated a Chechen exile in a Berlin park and been sentenced to life in a German prison. There was an alleged sleeper agent named Anna Dultseva, captured in Slovenia. There were the children of those operatives, born outside Russia, who did not yet know they were Russian. And there was Roman Seleznev. His hair was gray, he was 40 years old. His hands were cuffed in front of him. He walked across the tarmac toward the Russian aircraft. He did not look back. He climbed the stairs and disappeared into the cabin. The cabin door closed behind him. The American delegation would arrive that night at Joint Base Andrews. President Biden and Vice President Harris would meet them on the runway. There would be tears. There would be photographs. Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter who had spent 16 months in a Russian prison on espionage charges no one believed, would embrace his mother. Paul Whelan, the former Marine who had been held for 5.5 years on charges that were even less believable, would walk into the arms of his family. In Moscow, the Russian aircraft landed late that night at Vnukovo Airport. The door opened. Vladimir Putin was on the tarmac to meet it. He embraced each returning man personally. He handed each a bouquet of flowers. Roman Seleznev had been sentenced to 27 years in an American federal prison. He served 10 years. The man who in 2014 had been the most wanted hacker on Earth, captured at unimaginable diplomatic risk by agents who flew to a foreign country pretending to be tourists and stole him from his own bodyguards, was now standing on Russian soil with flowers in his hand and the president of the Russian Federation embracing him as a national hero. The doctrine that had been written to deliver him to justice had delivered him home. The story did not stop there. 6 months later, in February of 2025, an American teacher named Mark Fogel walked into the White House. Fogel, 63 years old, had been a Russian prisoner for 3.5 years on a marijuana charge that in any other circumstance would have produced a fine. He had been sentenced to 14 years. He had served them, the President of the United States announced, for the wrong reasons. The next day, in Moscow, the door of a second aircraft opened. Alexander Vinnik stepped out. He had pleaded guilty in an American federal court 8 months earlier to the conspiracy to launder approximately $4 billion through BTCE. His sentencing hearing had been scheduled for the following June. The sentencing hearing would never happen. He left behind, in the United States, approximately $100 million in seized digital assets and an indictment that had cost the Secret Service 5 years to build. He went home. The doctrine the Secret Service had improvised in the Maldives 11 years earlier had now completed its arc. 3 Russian hackers had been captured on foreign soil. 3 Russian hackers had walked free. None of them had served the sentence an American judge had imposed. The Department of Justice has never written a public memo on this. The Secret Service has never issued a statement. But 3 sealed orders sit in 3 different federal court files, and in each of those files is the same quiet story. The criminal became the currency. The sentence became the negotiating position. The wanted poster became a starting offer. Jurisdiction ends here. That was the rule the agents broke in mail in the summer of 2014. It was the rule Russia taught Israel 5 years later, when a backpacker who had never thought about Alexei Burkov in her life woke up in a Moscow holding cell. It was the rule broken quietly in 2021, when a hacker who was supposed to serve 9 years walked through Moscow immigration in less than 2. It was the rule set aside in 2024, when a Marine held for 5.5 years walked off a plane in Maryland because a Russian senator's son walked off another plane in Moscow on the same night. The doctrine that was supposed to deliver justice has delivered an exchange rate. A pound of stolen credit cards is worth a pound of jailed journalist. A man laundered in cryptocurrency is worth a man whose passport was the wrong color in the wrong airport. The window the Secret Service opened in mail opens both ways. It always did. If this is the kind of story you would want to know about while it was still happening, the rest of the channel is built on the same idea. Subscribe, and the next one will find you.